Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Marche, the Webinar Director at Advice Chaser. Before we introduce our guests and get started, I do need to do a little bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars such as these, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. However, any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. Well, we're excited to bring you today's educational presentation. Attendees are muted, but we encourage you to ask questions using the chat box. The presenter will answer those queries during or after the webinar today as appropriate. And if you ask a question in the chat box, go ahead and leave your phone number as well. If we can't get to your question during the event, we'll make sure someone reaches out to you after today's event. We want this experience to be as educational as possible, so please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. I'd love to introduce you to today's moderator. Terrence Pulauskas is the Senior Vice President of Redbridge Financial. Terrence has worked hard to create a team with over 120 years of experience to develop financial strategies that help clients plan for their financial future. Terrence has a background working with elder law firms who have helped him and his clients in dealing with issues related to long-term care planning. Terrence and his wife enjoy traveling, camping, and raising Doberman pinschers. He's very active in his charitable work, and he volunteers weekly in a community education outreach program. And Terrence, I'll have you come off of mute and say a few words to our audience.
Thank you. Over the last 20 years, I've helped many clients plan and save for the future, and everybody should have a financial plan. A critical aspect of that plan is to prepare for the good times in our life, and I find most clients are very engaged in that part of the plan, planning for retirement, big purchases throughout life. But something that can derail a plan are the not so good times, and a solid financial plan is also going to prepare us for those. One of those not so good times is when our health takes a turn for the worse, or it may be when our parents' health gets worse. And as you get closer to retirement, you will likely find yourself having the added concern about your parents' health. And that's a deeply personal subject for me because my wife and I were the primary caregivers for one of my grandparents. As my grandmother got older, we had to take time off work to care for her needs. Now, we were very happy to do it. She was a wonderful grandmother, but it did involve a sacrifice of time and money that we didn't necessarily think of it all in advance. So discussions with a financial professional, it shouldn't be just all about money. A good advisor is going to talk to you about you and your family's health and well-being. He'll work with you to devise a plan that incorporates the reality of getting older. So that's why I'm pleased to moderate this discussion. It's my hope that the few minutes you spend with us today is going to help you prepare for something that almost all of us will have to deal with at some point.
Terrence, thank you so much. I'd love to introduce you to our speaker today. Annalee Kruger is the founder and president of CareRight, Inc., the concierge of senior care planning. CareRight assists families in navigating the complexities associated with the aging process by managing crisis situations, developing a proactive aging plan, facilitating family meetings, and providing needed support to struggling caregivers. For Annalee, providing proactive senior care planning to families, it's more than just a career, it's her passion. Annalee has spent her entire 27-year career in the senior care industry and has become a nationally recognized expert in the field of senior care planning. Annalee is the author of The Invisible Patient, which comes out later this year and outlines the emotional, physical, and financial toll experienced by family caregivers. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, Annalee, and then you can go ahead and take over.
Okay, hi everybody, and thank you, Terrence and Marche, for such a welcome here. And Terrence, you are spot on. A lot of families don't talk about the what ifs of aging, and then those adult children find themselves thrust into the role of caregiving, usually without a plan, and it doesn't work well, and things get really messy really quickly. And I know as well from not only being a daughter, but also doing what I do for a living, um, caregiving can get really overwhelming really quickly, and especially if you don't have a plan, if you don't have the tools, or if you don't have the personality of caregiving to be a caregiver, and you don't understand the conditions that your aging loved one has, whether it's Parkinson's or dementia, MS, whatever the situation is, if you haven't done your research to really understand the prognosis and the disease progression, um, it gets very overwhelming very quickly. And I find that people, families try their best at trying to help their parents, but in the end, and sometimes sooner rather than later, they really find themselves in over their head with caregiving, so they get burned out. So I'm glad that all of you who are on this webinar today are here. We are going to talk about the dreaded words, Dad fell, now what? So here we go. Whoops. All right. We're going to talk about the prevalence of falls in the elderly. We know that falls are a threat to older adults. We know that falls reduce their ability to remain independent, and you can reduce the chance of falls. And we're going to talk today about how to reduce falls and hopefully keep your loved ones upright, safe, and healthy and out of the hospital. So facts about falls: more than 1 out of 4 older people age 65 and older fall each year, and less than half tell their doctor. Falling once can double your chance of falling again, and falls can be serious and costly. 1 out of 5 falls causes injury such as broken bones or a head injury. 3 million older people are treated in emergency rooms for falls each year, and 800,000 patients a year are hospitalized due to a fall. More than 95% of hip fractures are caused by falling, and falls are the most common cause of traumatic brain injuries. In 2015, the total medical costs totaled over $50 million. So let's talk about some of this in a little bit more detail. We're going to talk about what happens after a fall. We know that 1 out of 5 falls does cause a serious injury, such as a broken bone or a head injury. We know falls can be serious, especially if the person is taking certain medications like blood thinners. An older person who falls and hits their head should see their doctor right away to make sure they don't have a brain injury. Many people who fall become afraid of falling. This can cause a person to cut down on their everyday activities. When a person is less active, they become weaker, and this increases their chance of falling. It seems like when elderly people, or when people in general, start falling, they do lose their confidence, and then they stop going out, or they pretty much stay in their chair and watch TV, which then gets them weaker and weaker. So falls are so critical to be thinking about and trying to prevent, and be aware of how serious this is. Even in a skilled rehab center where, your loved one falls, they go to the hospital, they have their 3 overnight stays as an admitted patient, and that's the key word there, is that they're actually admitted. Then they can go into a skilled rehab unit, get their physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, so they get their rehab. And usually with a fall, it's 2 to 4 weeks of rehab, depending on how well the recovery goes. But these rehab units, they're doing 3 to 5 admissions every single day because most of these injuries that residents are coming in with are because they fell. So I'm so glad that we're talking about falls today and how we can work together and how we can best protect your loved ones, or you, if you're the one on the webinar that is at a fall risk. There are lots of different conditions that can cause falls. One is obviously dementia, Why is that? Because dementia is a brain disease. So when you think about your brain and dementia, it's shrinking, shrinking, shrinking. And that's why you see changes in mood, changes in behavior, changes in personality, changes in their ability to care for themselves. You'll see changes in their attention span. And dementia, because it is a brain disease, it obviously affects their vision. So they can have depth perception issues. It's very common. So if you're dealing with a dementia journey, it's very common that when they go to sit down, for example, because of the depth perception issues often caused with dementia, they might miss the chair and sit, fall on the floor. Or even like door frames, they'll often have bruises or skin tears on their arms because they misjudge like the doorway. So if you have a loved one with dementia, you need to be extra careful about their falls. And there's lots of different things you can do. You can pad, you can put padding on door frames, you can pad like the nightstands and those kind of things. So if they do fall, we're lessening their chance of getting hurt. All right, I could talk all day about dementia because most of my clients have dementia. So anyway, if your loved one has dementia, you need to be especially aware of the risk of falls and wandering and pacing, especially in the afternoons when they tend to sundown. If they're up and moving around and anxious and agitated, they're at more risk of falling as well. Lower body weakness, and that can be from a variety of things. We know that seniors who are still at home, who do not have enough supports in place, do not have good outcomes. That's pretty apparent. And so oftentimes what happens is people who have aged in place at home without proper supports and without an aging plan, they don't have the activity, the socialization, and the mobility continues to decrease. And often they truly do just sit in their chair and watch TV. And so when that's their lifestyle, then obviously they're not exercising enough. And it is true, if you don't use it, you lose it. So they're not exercising enough. They're also not socially engaged enough, especially coming out of our pandemic where they were in isolation. We really need to make sure that they have enough supports in place, whether it's home care, physical therapy that can come to the house, an exercise routine to really keep their muscles strong. But exercise also obviously helps with blood flow, circulation, and their memory and their mood. If we can keep these seniors more active, then they're less likely to have depression, anxiety, and more memory impairment. So lower body weakness is a condition that can cause falls. So you can see how one thing can really spiral into other problems. And once they start becoming less mobile and the social isolation hits, they're at even more of a risk of falling because no one's probably going to be there to check on them. Vitamin D deficiency. So it's really important to get blood work done on a regular basis, especially even with vitamin D. Everybody was locked into their homes for the last year and a half. And so we see a lot of vitamin D deficiency people, not just seniors, but people, because they haven't been able to get out. Difficulty with walking and balance. Again, physical therapy and just exercise routine will really help offset some of those issues with balance and walking. And even looking to see with a therapist, physical therapist, do they need a cane, a walker, a quad cane, a hemi walker? Like what kind of device would be beneficial for them to help them with their balance? Use of medications, so medications like tranquilizers, sedatives, antidepressants, some over-the-counter medications can also affect the balance and how steady you are on your feet. So a lot of elderly people will take sleeping pills. And so that's great that it helps them sleep. But then if they get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, because most seniors do, then they're pretty foggy and they're not thinking clearly and their vision might be impaired because they're still very sleepy. and then they fall. So really, if you have a loved one who falls and they're willing to tell you if you don't know, or if you don't have cameras in the house so you don't know what's happening, really try to see it. What kind of fall pattern is it? Do they tend to happen at night? And really drill down and assess what is happening at night. Is it medication related? Is it because your mom sleeps on satin sheets and they're really slippery? Does she not wear proper footwear? Is she wearing slippers instead of shoes? So really look at those falls and try to find some trends on what's happening so that you can prevent them. Usually when I do my aging plan development with families, obviously we cover about 30 different aspects of aging and caregiving and health issues. And we really evaluate those falls and say, okay, what's happening here? What's trending and how can we prevent those? Same thing with weight loss. If they've had a weight loss, that can also impact their ability to walk and impact their balance if they're malnutrition, which often seniors are when they are at home without proper care oversight and without proper supports. If you have aging parents, just one little tip is I encourage you to pop open the refrigerator door and make sure that the food in there is not outdated and spoiled. I'd also look at the medicine cabinet or look in their pill boxes and make sure that the medications that they're taking, that they're doing them properly and that they're not missing medications, and also that those medications are not outdated. We often think that our aging loved ones are doing better than they really are at home. So when my families call me, when my clients call me, it's because they've usually been blindsided that mom and dad aren't doing as well at home as what they thought, especially again, coming out of a pandemic. These seniors really, really have been struggling for the last at least year and a half. And now the family is finally aware of it. So vision problems. Sometimes falls really can be a simple fix, as in, when's the last time you had your eyes checked? Maybe it's just a simple thing like glasses need to be updated or a prescription needs to be updated. Foot pain, a lot of people, and poor footwear. A lot of seniors may have neuropathy in their feet, so they may not even have great feeling and nerve damage in their feet. And so when they do stand up, they aren't steady, and they fall down. Improper footwear is also a huge thing. Sometimes they just wear slippers, and that can be a real fall hazard right there, especially depending on what kind of flooring they have, if it's carpet or hardwood floors or rugs, those kind of things. Home hazards or dangers such as broken or uneven steps. If you're in the Midwest, because I'm here in Florida, we don't really have basements, but I'm from the Midwest. And all those 2-story homes that have the basements, really, really make sure that those basement steps, if they're going to be going down to do the laundry, make sure that those basement stairs are safe, that there's a railing, that there's some sort of anti-slip paint or sand, that you can paint on those steps. But ideally, you'll be able to move the washer and the dryer up to the main floor so that there is no reason to go to the basement. So check to see what the home structure is like and how safe is it really in the house. A lot of my clients, have lived in the same home for 40, 50, 60 years. And unfortunately, as they aged, they didn't maintain the house. And so uneven steps, uneven driveways, the driveway is cracked or there's cement. The cement is cracked. The deck might not have safe boards. They need to be replaced. So really take a magnifying glass to all fall hazards that could possibly be happening at your parents' house. Throw rugs or clutter that can be tripped over. Look at this from, when you do the house tour, I call it. If you look at the house tour, really look at what are some fall hazards. Throw rugs are almost always a physical therapist's worst nightmare. That is almost the first thing they always say is get rid of the throw rugs. But also, is there too much clutter? Are there extension cords all over and they're tripping over the cords? You have to really look at everything from a safety perspective. Common areas that elderly people fall, obviously the bathroom and the bathtub. And I am here to tell you that a ceramic bathtub will always win. So will a kitchen sink or a bathroom sink or a toilet. They will always win. The bones will break. Stairs can be very unsafe. There's things that you can do to renovate or update the house if really the goal is to age in place at home and it makes financial sense to age in place at home. Then does it make sense to, invest a lot of money to renovate the house? You can easily, like for the bathroom and the bathtub, you don't have to spend a $10,000 or $15,000 walk-in shower if you don't have the budget. You can work with what's called a certified aging in place specialist. It's CAPS, certified aging in place specialist. And those are contractors who actually have gone through a training program and a certification program on how to take your house and make it senior safe. So if you don't have the funds to put in, a brand new bathtub or a walk-in shower, they can actually take just a few pieces out of the bathtub, the existing bathtub, and make it so it's like a walk-in shower. So there's all sorts of different options you can do that can be pretty affordable. But you want to work with a professional who knows all of this so it saves you time, money, stress, and angst. So let's go back to the stairs. So stairs, lots of people fall on stairs. Is there a handrail? Is the handrail steady? Is the handrail on the right side? So say dad had a stroke and he's got left-sided weakness. Is the handrail on the right side for him to be successful? Are there two rails, one on either side? So really, if they are persistent on using stairs, try to make those as safe as possible. You can also get a stair lift if there's a stair lift that will fit in the stairwell. Just depends on the structure of the house and the stairwell. The bedroom, getting in and out of the bed, it's landscape day, so you might hear my dog bark. So bedroom, getting in and out of the bed, too many times the bed is too high. And so they actually slide and fall right out of bed. So checking to see not only the bedroom furniture, but their furniture in general and their toilet seat. Is it too high or too low? So if furniture is too low, say you have dad who's like with my mom and dad, my dad is 6'4". My mom, she just passed away last month with dementia, but she was 4'9". So in their house, before mom went into a memory care facility, dad's furniture, we had to jack it up, and you can actually get those furniture risers on Amazon. It's really cheap. But mom's, we were literally sawing off the legs. So really look at furniture height. I'm telling you, it can really cause falls. Bar stools can be a dangerous thing for short people. So look at what kind of chair they're actually sitting in. So check to really see how safe is the furniture. So you and I, if you're the adult children on this webinar, we can be like, oh yeah, there's like 600 things that we need to change in the house. The key is trying to get mom and dad to be convinced that if their plan is really to age in place at home, then these are the things that you need to be willing to change or do differently with your house. So, and they also have to have the funds then to back it up. So living room, again, cables, rugs, furniture, driveway and sidewalks, especially if there's a step up. Some of these houses, like the split foyers, I don't know what they call them now, but we used to call them split foyers. So you enter the house, you got to go up like 3 flights or 3 steps to get into the house. And then as soon as you open the door, you're at a landing. So you either have to go down or go up, right? We call those, in Iowa, we call those split foyers. Those are terrible. It's a terrible aging in place type of setup because they often don't have everything that you need can be on one floor because you either have to go up or go down and go to the bathroom and the laundry room and all that kind of stuff. So just even looking at what type the house setup is and the entryway to the house. Is there any way that they can put a ramp in? Do you need ramp assistance or you'll have to get a permit to get a ramp put in? So just really look at just even how can they get in and out of their house. Look at with a driveway. I can't tell you how many clients I have in the Midwest that every single winter they fall down their driveway because it's slippery. And guess where the mailbox is? At the end of the driveway, right? So depending on where you live, these are different things to be thinking about. Now, if your driveway, if your mailbox is at the end of the driveway, you can call the post office and have them move it up to the front of the house. So just know that there is a solution for that. And then outdoors, a lot of people like to garden or be in their yard and walk around, and sometimes yards are not level, right? So just be careful outside in any kind of uneven surface. Preventing falls at home. Talk to your loved ones, doctor, and ask them to evaluate the risk for falling. So really what that means is you need to go to the doctor and ask for a physical therapy screen, and Medicare pays for that, their insurance pays for that. They'll want to look at strength and balance exercises and get into an exercise regime. Again, the more active we can keep ourselves, but also the more active we can keep our seniors, the better health outcomes they're going to have in general, with diabetes management, blood pressure, medication. So the more active we can keep them medically, they're going to be more successful. Proper hydration and nutrition. Again, I just see families that come to me because things really are not going well at all. And often their loved one who is at home, because there's not enough care oversight, care management, or there's so much tension with the family members that even though the adult kids see the writing on the wall that mom's not drinking enough and she's not eating healthily because of family dynamics, you can do your best at advocating for your loved one. But the reality is you often need a neutral third-party person to intervene. So hydration and nutrition will negatively impact them. If you look at hydration alone, that helps, keeping hydrated keeps you having healthy skin integrity, so less risk of breakdown if they're eating and drinking well. It also helps with circulation. It helps them with their mood. It helps them with clear thinking. It also obviously prevents them from being dehydrated, which then can cause confusion, lethargy, definitely a hospitalization, and also urinary tract infections. With urinary tract infections, I'm just going to go into this while I have a captive audience because everybody wants to know about urinary tract infections, I'm sure. But they can be usually prevented if they're drinking enough and if they're keeping their bottoms clean and dry, and if they're eating properly. So a lot of times elderly people will drink juice, and that is all sugar. So you really have to be careful. What are they eating and what are they drinking? Sometimes also people think that, well, I drink coffee. That's actually a dehydrator. So it really needs to be good old-fashioned water. Proper furniture height, I've already kind of hammered that one in, I think. Have your eyes checked. We talked about getting your eyes checked and really making sure your glasses are the right prescription level. Care oversight and care coordination. That's really what the main problem is when families come to me is twofold. Either they're so burned out because they are the burned out caregiver doing all of this care oversight and care coordination, and now they're really resentful of their family, of their siblings, because all of this caregiving tends to fall on the shoulders of, often one person, and it's usually the local person. But also on the flip side of care oversight and care coordination, the lack of it. In my experience, adult children, they don't know what they don't know until they know it, and they often think their parents are doing a lot better than they really are. So for example, how are we on time? We're good on time. So I'm going to give you an example about Hurricane Irma here in Florida. So most of the people that call me for their 30-minute consult, they'll say, well, I really want to age in place at home and I'm not leaving my house and blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. Let's put a plan in place so that you can make that happen. Sometimes they'll say yes and sometimes they say no. So Hurricane Irma hits. And all these seniors who I've done speaking engagements with, they're like calling me up because guess what? Hurricane Irma hit and they were scared. They're like, oh, this isn't working because the place shut down, like South Florida shut down for like weeks and months. And people went into the hurricane, and they're frail elderly. They didn't have water because they couldn't go to like Sam's and get water. They couldn't drive. So they were really in a bad way. Often they ran out of oxygen because they didn't plan for, being able to get more oxygen concentrators. They ran out of their medication. They ran out of their Depends and their incontinence supplies. I mean, it was a mess. And so then they realized maybe this aging in place at home really isn't cracked up to be as much as I thought it would be. On the flip side, the adult children who I'd done 30-minute consults with, during their consult call, they'd be like, oh, well, mom and dad are doing good enough right now. We're not in any type of crisis. And I'm always like, that's great. Now is the time to put the plan together because you'll have much better outcomes if you plan ahead and still choosing to wait until crisis mode. And so when Hurricane Irma hit, my phone literally rang off the hook because a lot of these adult children flew their parents up so that they'd stay with them and get out of harm's way. And so within days of them having their parents with them in their own house up north, the kids are like, oh my gosh, Anna Lee, remember when you said that things aren't going as well as we thought? Well, that's true. So what they were finding was they didn't realize that their parents were falling all the time. They're like, Dad's fallen 4 times since they've been here in the last week. They didn't realize that their loved one was as demented as they really are. They didn't realize that their parents were not taking their medications on time or even taking their medications or taking their medications properly. So it was a rude awakening for a lot of these adult kids to realize, oh my gosh, this isn't working. There's no way they can possibly be safe at home. So care oversight and care coordination are so critical to really everyone's success so that you don't get to be a burned out caregiver and really angry and resentful of your parents and of your siblings and of your life situation. Senior safe home. So again, I talked about the certified aging in place specialist that's called CAPS. There's a CAPS organization or association. So depending on where you live, if this is of interest to you, you can truly just Google certified aging in place specialist or CAPS association. And it's a great website. It'll just pull up whoever might be a CAPS in your area. I would encourage if there is a CAPS in your area that you use them because they have had special training in the needs of seniors. So proper lighting. So one thing I encourage families is don't always just go over during the day. We know that our moms and dads like to kind of shut down after Jeopardy, right? So when it gets dark out, sometimes they go to bed. But the reality is that when you only go over during the day, it's hard to see if the lamps are burned out or light bulbs are burned out. I encourage you to go over at night and see really how dark is the house. Are there light bulbs that need to be replaced? You definitely do not, I'm here to tell you that you definitely do not want your 82-year-old dad on a ladder replacing light bulbs. So simple things like that. Make sure there's proper lighting and make sure light bulbs are changed. You can also get those lamps, like those clap-ons, like from 30 or 40 years ago. Those are fantastic because especially if they have a hard time getting up or they have shortness of breath, or when they do stand up, they get lightheaded because their blood pressure isn't right on target. There's all sorts of adaptive things you can do to try to keep your parents or your loved ones or you safe at home. I can't drill this in enough to you. Proper furniture height. It's such a simple fix. It's such a simple fix. And I know I mentioned the satin sheets. When I work with clients, I literally have them take me, because I'm virtual, so I literally have them take me around their house on their laptop and I can point out like 8 different things that, well, this is why your loved one's falling. And the families, because this isn't what you do for a living, you wouldn't think about some of this stuff. So it really does help to work with professionals or have a physical therapist do that. Technology solutions like fall pendants with a fall sensor, every week there's more and more senior safe technology. I encourage all of my clients to have cameras in their house, especially if you have concerns about falls and safety or dementia. You really want to be able to keep tabs on your loved one and make sure that they're okay. Fall sensors, you need to be, or fall pendants with the GPS or the fall sensor in it, you really need to be careful and make sure that wherever you get that fall sensor pendant, that it's going to be compatible with pacemakers. So for example, there's some lifeline pendants out there or fall pendants out there that it will ruin, it will impact the pacemaker. So if you have a pacemaker, you can't have certain types of fall pendant technology. So you really have to be careful about that. And those reps that sell them online, you need to actually have a conversation. So the last thing you want is your loved one who has a pacemaker to have that all messed up because of a fall sensor. While we're on fall sensors, because people don't think about this either, it's great that you get just the fall. If you just get the fall button, like for example, Lifeline, Philips Lifeline fall button, if you can get the fall sensor in it, it's really the better way to go, because the fall with the fall button, if they hit their head and they're unconscious, or they fell down the steps because you didn't get the handrails on, or they went down without the light on, if they fall and they hit their head and they're unconscious, they can't hit the button. They can't press the button, right? So the fall button doesn't really help in those types of situations. There's fall pendants that have the GPS tracker, so that if they're active and mobile and they fall in the grocery store parking lot, the fall sensor will trigger the nearest ambulance because it's got that fall chip in it. So there's a lot of different options out there. You just have to do a lot of good research or work with a professional that can help you weed out some options or weed out ideas so that you don't spend a lot of time and money on things that a professional can actually help you with. And then cameras. Cameras, not only because you want to keep tabs on what's going on with your loved one, but also if you have care providers coming into the home. One thing about aging in place at home, families and seniors don't realize the cost of that, and they don't realize the traffic that's going to be in and out. So say you have a companion coming in from a home care company, because of the applicant pool that we have to choose from, it's very hard to get companions to come in for 1 or 2 hour shifts. And in fact, most home care companies don't even offer that anymore. So most home care companies, you have to commit to like 4 or 5 hour shift minimums, or 21 or 28 hours of care per week. Otherwise, they won't take you on as a client. So you've got all these caregivers coming in and out. You've got physical therapy, occupational therapy, maybe a wound nurse. You've got maybe a dietitian. I mean, you've got all these people coming in and out of your house. And people don't think about that when they think about aging in place at home. So cameras are incredibly important. What is a senior safe home? All one floor or stair lift if there's multiple floors. The walk-in showers are ideal because then you can have the shower chair in there and there's plenty of room for your loved one and the caregiver. Because at some point you got to look fast forward and say, okay, how do I need to have my house in the event that I need to have 1 or 2 caregivers tending to me in the bathroom and the showers and the bedroom to get me in and out of my bed safely. So you have to think about that if you're going to do a senior safe home. Raised or lowered toilets. That was the trick at mom and dad's. So thankfully they had 2 bathrooms because dad's so tall and mom was so short. Properly secured grab bars. You have to be careful because the ones that you see on TV that they just are like suction cupped, you really have to do some research to make sure that what you do install in your loved one's home is really going to be actually safe. Laundry on the main floor. Again, we don't want mom and dad up and down basement steps if we can help it. Kitchens with microwaves at a safe level. A lot of homes, especially the older homes, they'll have the microwaves like up higher, like above the stove or up at like underneath the counter. Well, if your loved one is, 5'2" and arthritic and bent over because she has osteoporosis, how safe do you think that is, her taking out a bowl of soup when it's higher than she is. There's all sorts of different ways you can get those microwaves down on the counter or even built in inside the countertops. Let's see. Safe furniture. Again, chairs with arms and no wheels. We don't want to be rolling backwards and falling out of the chair. Proper lighting, smooth carpets. So that's one thing I see a lot of too with these home tours that I have the families kind of walk me through on their laptop. The carpet's bubbled. Again, sometimes when moms and dads have lived in the same house for decades, they might not have updated things. And so the carpet's like really bubbly. So that's one thing that you want to make sure is that the flooring is smooth. Rugs with rubber backs or no rugs at all. All right. Aging in place, the expense of renovating the home. Again, the certified aging in place specialist. I keep mentioning that because it's number one, repetition helps people learn. But number two, most people don't know that there's actually people out there that specialize in senior safe homes. So home care costs can be another consideration. Working with a financial planner who understands elderly and understands the cost of care is really going to be a valuable professional to have in your toolbox, like Terrence and his firm. So looking at the cost of home care, I have clients that are paying up to $20,000 a month to be able to age in place at home. Why is it so expensive? Because if you have two people like mom and dad, and they both need a caregiver because of their care needs, that doubles the cost. So home care can be anywhere from $22 to $38 an hour, depending on where you live and depending on which company you go through. So think about the home care costs, and that's just for the companion. So if you need to hire a personal trainer so that your parent stays motivated to exercise, or if you need to hire the physical therapist outside of the insurance policy and pay privately to have a physical therapist come, which a lot of clients do that because they know that once they lose their mobility, their quality of life is going to really deteriorate quickly. So you need to add in all those costs. If you need to have a dietitian, that's private pay. They're anywhere from $200 to $300 to $400 an hour, depending again where you live. But again, nutrition, hydration, exercise, and activities and socialization are really the key ingredients to a successful aging in place at home recipe. You need to have someone that can make sure that you've got a reliable home care company that you're working with. That can be really challenging to find that, especially after the pandemic. We still have a shortage of care workers that are coming back into the workforce. So some home care companies aren't even taking on new clients because they don't have the staff to be able to staff them. So this is what we talk about when we talk about an aging plan. I help align all of this so that you can just be the son and the daughter. You need to also think about the cost of maintaining the house and the car. Your financial planner probably, or maybe probably not, I don't know. They should have a whole checklist of like, how much does it cost for you to stay at home so that you can do a financial analysis and say, all right, well, I'm willing to stay at home for 4 months, knowing that it could potentially cost this much. When does it make sense to maybe think about moving into a care community of some sort while you're still physically able to move in, because you have to financially, physically, and cognitively qualify. So there is that sweet spot of when does it make sense to maybe move into a care community of some sort. But lack of care oversight and coordination will result in more frequent hospitalizations. So I can't stress that enough either. So if family's not able to provide that level of service and care for their loved one, then they need to hire that out as well. Missed doctor or therapy appointments. Again, this can be because they're just frail and elderly and they don't drive anymore, or they get mixed up on which doctor is for what body part and they miss their doctor's appointments, or they don't follow through with hospital discharge records. So we know that 48% of people, when they discharge from a hospital, they don't keep up with their discharge plan because there might be 8 or 10 doctor's appointments that they have to follow up with, and they're still not feeling in great shape yet. And so they don't follow through with the discharge plan and they miss their doctor's appointments and they don't get therapy set up. Or right now, what's happening still for the last year and a half is it's taking weeks because the therapy companies are often short-staffed also. So it can take weeks to get therapy started. And so even if your mom or dad calls the therapy company and says, okay, I'm ready to get started, it might still take weeks, and then maybe mom and dad forget about it, or they've continued to decline so much that now they're back in the hospital. So a lot of that could have been prevented if there was someone to oversee their care. There's also the potential lack of ability to pay their bills. So that's something to think about as your loved one wants to age in place at home. Who's going to be able to step in to be able to help with bill pay when it looks like your parents can't do that anymore? We know that seniors, and especially persons with dementia, are at a very high risk of getting scammed. So make sure that you're overseeing the bills and the credit card statements and the account balances and acting on that right away. Lack of proper socialization. We know that the only activity that actually engages 100% of your brain is face-to-face interaction. So knowing that through the pandemic, people didn't have that opportunity, we really need to up our opportunities to get these seniors more socialized. Nutrition, that kind of stands on its own about how important it is to eat. You'll notice if you're watching your aging parents, look in the refrigerator and actually see what they're eating. Oftentimes, the more frail and elderly and less mobile they are, they're eating potato chips, Pop-Tarts. They're eating junk because they don't have the energy and stamina to cook. So they're eating whatever they can easily open, and it's rarely nutritious. Activity and medication management is another huge thing to consider. Who is really going to oversee their medication management and make sure that they're not overtaking or undertaking their pills? So these are really important things to be thinking about when you have aging parents. So not only their fall safety, but their overall safety at home. So that's what I have for information. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody. Hopefully you saw the value and got, a few nuggets of information that's going to help you and your parents or your loved ones be successful at home, or at least have a more successful aging journey. All right. Any questions?
Yes, we do. One of the first questions is, why don't people like to tell their doctor about falls?
Well, I can tell you the idea right off the top of my head is, number one, even if they sometimes don't like the follow-up that's going to happen, because they know that then their doctor is going to write an order for physical therapy, and they often don't want to do their therapy, or they don't realize that insurance will pay for the therapy and they don't want to spend the money on it. The other thing is that a lot of seniors, because we know that like 65% of them or more want to age in place at home, sometimes they don't tell their doctor because they don't want the doctor to just put them in a facility. And the other reason is they want to maintain their independence. So it's not just falls that they don't report. They don't report a lot of things. And that's why when I do my virtual advocacy with my clients and I'm on the phone with them during their doctor's appointment, I can tell the doctor exactly what's been going on. The other reason, and then I'll let you go on to the next question, but the other reason is that because sometimes the generation in their 80s and 90s, they don't want to burden the doctor. So they don't tell them anything that they actually need to know. So either a concerned family member, or a neutral third-party person like myself really needs to be actively involved with those doctor's appointments so that they do have the best quality care. It could also be that the doctor is too and really doesn't work with geriatrics very well. So make sure that you're working with a physician that's actually the right fit for what your loved one needs.
A natural segue question here is, this is also from someone in the audience. How can I encourage my parent to let me know if they fall?
So same reason why they don't tell their doctor, because because number one, they're afraid then that's going to prompt a change of some sort. But the question was, how can I encourage them to let me know? Yeah, safety, this is one way I would encourage them is, so mom, what is your goal as you age? Families need to start talking about, aging and the what ifs of aging. So mom, have you thought about what your goals are as you age? Well, yes, dear, I actually have. My goal is to age in place at home. That's great, mom. So here's some things that we need to talk about. They may feel uncomfortable or unpleasant, but we want to help you be successful and age in place at home. So we're going to need to have some much more frank conversation than what we have been having. So part of those conversations involved, we're going to have to talk about falls. And now that you've done this webinar, you can be Mr. and Mrs. Sherlock Holmes next time you go to your mom and dad's house and be like, ooh, there's 16 fall hazards right here. Now the trick is, well, mom, we need to change the carpet or we need to change the light bulb. Some things your family is going to be more agreeable to do. But if you come in with this whole sledgehammer approach of all the things that we're going to have to do differently now, you need to be careful doing that. Because you have to go the pace that your loved one is willing to go, or it's going to really hurt your family relationships. So alongside of that is, in my experience, when families try to have these conversations with their loved ones, it really doesn't work. You have to, most families, you really do need to have a neutral third party person to facilitate these types of conversations for it to really be successful. Otherwise, your relationships are going to be so strained that you'll just quit trying, and then you'll just wait until there's a crisis and then have to move forward with that.
Okay. Now, are there things that people can do now to plan for the financial aspect of aging?
Yep. One more thing about just cameras. I can't stress this enough. Cameras can give you a peace of mind for falls. And what are they actually doing in their house? Are they eating? Are they falling? Are they wandering out of the house? Are they sleeping okay? So cameras are they're going to really give you peace of mind. The question is, some people feel like that's a violation of privacy. So there's a whole nother conversation about that. But again, a neutral third party person can help you with that. The value of a financial planner who actually has, like Terrence, you've been through all of this type of caregiving stuff already. So you have a unique understanding of really what a lot of these families are going through, because you've been a caregiver and actively involved with elderly parents and elderly grandparents. So there's value in working with a financial planner, because you don't always think about the cost of all of these in-home care services. And again, you have to, evaluate your risk. Are you willing to go through all of the money that you have to be able to stay at home? And then when you realize it's not as romantic of an idea as you thought, now did you just jeopardize any type of decent quality care type of facility that you could have been in a year or two prior and had the socialization, the medication management, the meals, and the therapy delivered right there to you in the assisted living apartment? So financial planners can help you navigate some of the financial cost of this. And if you have long-term care insurance, that can obviously help offset the cost. Your financial planner may or may not sell long-term care insurance, but there's other ways to also help offset the cost of care, like veteran benefits. So your financial planner should be familiar with all of those types of ways to help pay for care. And so there's value in working with a planner who knows who's been through something like this and has some experience on how to help you also navigate the financial piece.
Nice. I know while there was quite a bit of stress involved with my grandmother, one of the things that we didn't have to stress about was the finances, because that was a plan we put in place many years before. So it was it wasn't a stress-free ordeal by any stretch, but that part we didn't have to, that was already done. So that was nice.
Well, and I think one learning that my clients have, because when I facilitate the family meetings and share how much the cost of care is on different levels of care and home care and respite care and adult daycare programs. And so when I develop their aging plan with who's going to provide the care? Is it going to be family? Is it going to be a combination of providers? Where's that care going to be delivered? Is it going to be at home, or is it going to be in a care community of some sort? And how is that care going to be paid? And so when the adult kids realize that Medicare doesn't pay for everything that they think it does, they're like, holy cow, we can't afford any of this stuff. And sometimes they're right, because they didn't didn't do the due diligence to find out this stuff first. And so that's where there's another value of working with financial planners, because if you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, you're going to need to have, I'm just here to tell you, you're going to have some sort of financial solution to be able to pay for your future care. We know that like 85% of us are going to find ourselves needing care of some sort. So if you want to be able to leave legacy planning and all that kind of stuff for your kids, you need to have some sort of financial solution to pay for future care. And if you wait too long, you're not going to be able to get potentially underwritten.
Right. Good. Okay. See, 3 more questions here. One is, you mentioned sundowning. What is that?
Oh, so most often people with dementia sundown. So that means 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's almost like a switch gets flipped, and there's more anxiety, more restlessness, more fretfulness, more pacing. That's often when they're more confused, so they wander out of their house. Sometimes they get lost. If you're in a state that has a silver alert, in Florida, it's every day, because people don't understand dementia and their loved ones are vulnerable to getting lost. So it's when they become more agitated, anxious, confused, sometimes paranoid. That's common with sundowning. Most dementia patients have some sort of that. My mom, 3 o'clock would hit and she's like, I gotta go. So there's just all this restlessness, repetitive questions. I'm supposed to be somewhere. Where am I supposed to be? I don't know where my room is, and so there's just more repetitive questions. So that's what sundowning is. If you have a loved one with dementia, you need to have an aging plan, because at some point they really are not safe at home. So, and we know dementia is up to 22-year disease. So again, financial planners who know about this type of stuff can help you financially navigate at least how to afford to pay for care for potentially 2 decades.
Okay, very nice. When do you know you need cameras in the house?
Now, I mean, but you're also talking to someone who has seen a lot of things with home care companies. I've seen a lot of things with residents in facilities. If your loved one is at home, I would strongly encourage cameras. If you have any inkling or concern for falls, their safety, their well-being, depends on where they live. Do they even live in a safe town or safe side of town? Are they talking about people, ringing their doorbell and taking off? You just can't be too safe. If your loved one is in a facility and in a private room, I would strongly encourage that you get a camera in there as well. The camera is actually which I know saved my mom's life in the memory care unit, because they were actually taking her walker away from her and putting it in the bathroom way out of reach. So it wasn't until I was finally allowed to get a camera in that facility that's when the falls stopped, because I found out why she was falling and talked to the staff about it. So cameras will be a godsend.
Thank you. A couple more questions after this one, but can you talk about the risk of falls with a family that has kids? My mom lives with us and we have 3 young children.
Yeah. So I would love to have this actually be a whole topic for a webinar, because a lot of families say, well, let's have mom and dad move in with us. And it sounds great in the beginning while mom and dad are still functioning. But in time, when your house starts to look and smell like a nursing home with walkers and wheelchairs and urinals and commodes and all of that stuff happening, then you realize what's our exit strategy. So falls and kids kids and pets can really cause a lot of falls. So it's really working with your little kids and saying, okay, if mom, if grandma's walking around, you need to, give her distance and sit away from her, not approach her. Same thing with pets. Try to keep them corralled, especially when mom and dad are up walking around. But it's just really coaching and nurturing your adult children, and also with your mom and dad, to help them make safe decisions too when they're around the kids. Little kids, they get excited. They want to crawl up on mom, grandma and grandpa. but wait until they're seated and then give your child over to your parents or your mom and dad. So those are just a few ways, just coaching, observing, always being around if your parents are up and on the move, but also if your parents are still able to process information, like they're not demented, help them make safe decisions around the grandkids too. Like, don't get down on the floor and play with them as much as you would want to. You got to modify the playtime.
Okay. And this is, I believe, is the final question. Is there a way to protect a loved one who has dementia and is online dating? Is there a way to screen people the way you would with any other person you were bringing into your parents' home to care for them? I guess cameras could be good for this too.
So it could be, but what I think is what it's going to boil down to is, because a lot of these scams happen through like those dating sites and through internet searches and filling out contact forms. I can't tell you how many cell phones one of my new clients has because he keeps going online and filling out cell phone forms, and he's got like tons of them. So really what you're going to want to do, I don't care if your loved one has dementia or not, really, if you have aging parents, you need to have these conversations about, mom and dad, we know you're doing great, but we also know that your generation is really at a high risk of getting scammed. And sometimes they'll say, well, I would never give out my information. But then $150,000 later, you're like, oh, God, we didn't see this coming. We should have intervened. So there's different apps that you can get that you can link their account to, just like check in and make sure that nothing funky is going on with the account, because some banks will actually put safeguards in place so that it helps decrease the risk of fraud, but you have to stay on top of bank accounts. That's really the best way. The other way too, because some of these online dating things, that is exactly what they want. They want money. So if your loved one makes poor decisions with money, or they tend to get scammed, or they're at risk of being scammed, reduce that available credit on those credit cards, or reduce the amount of money that's in the bank account, or get your name on the bank account so you can help monitor it as well. But if your loved one has a credit availability of $5,000, reduce that to something that's like a few $100s. So you have to watch the credit cards, because that's going to be the telltale sign of what's happening with your loved one and their decision making.
Thank you so much, Annalie. We appreciate your expertise on this. I want to tell everyone that we have multiple webinars on our website that Annalie has done on aging, and we encourage you to look into those as well if you're looking for other topics. And of course, we will have you back.
No, thank
because
you.
there are many, many questions people have about this topic. So on behalf of Advice Chaser, we want to thank Annalie. We want to thank Terrence and the organizations that have worked with us to bring you this webinar today. Thank you to our attendees for attending. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who is a good fit for you, your life, and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners is committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. So find out more by going to advicechaser.com and clicking on the link to find an advisor. Once again, from Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you at another webinar soon. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.